press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Hi students, welcome back to your English class. Today we are going to continue the chapter 2 Gentlemen of Verona by A.J. Cronin. We were discussing about Nicola and Jacopo, who two little boys have done a lot of hard work, who are doing it for a purpose. When the narrator asks them, do they have any plans to go to the States? They say, no sir, we have some other plans over here. So now our narrator is very curious to know about those children. What kind of plans do they really have? Earlier, first in the beginning, we saw them staring strawberries and berries, scarlet berries. After which we saw those two little boys, 13 and 12, aged 13 and 12, do what? Shining shoes. And then we found them selling newspapers. So they are also taking the narrator and his companion along with the driver towards the city or in and around the city. They also do the business of a tour guide. Now a lot of jobs they do, and our narrator is very curious, isn't it? He's curious for what? Curious for knowing the things as what these boys really do with the money that they get. What do they do? Or the narrator says, you really do earn by doing all these kinds of odd jobs whole throughout the day. What do you do? You don't eat well. I only see you eating bread and other things, figs. I don't see you eating well, nor are you wearing good clothes. You're wearing very shabby and dirty clothes. What do you do with the money? Now on a Sunday afternoon, they plan to go to a place, they go to Poletta, 30 kilometers away from the city in Verona. They do go there every Sunday. Why do they go there? That we'll have to find out in today's class. But the narrator tells him, I'm just giving you a gist of what we discussed in the previous class. The narrator tells them, I'm leaving on Monday and what can I do for you before we leave? The boys, the elder one doesn't say anything. He says, no, we are fine on our own. We're not complaining about anything that's happening around us. But the younger one, he sits up all right, straight, and then tells the narrator that they do and go and visit this place, Poletta, 30 kilometers away. And the younger one requests the narrator, could you give us your car or could you take us on your car so that we need not hire bicycles that day? The narrator says, my driver is on leave. But then in the end he agrees to drive himself, these two boys, to wherever they would like to go. So now we are in Sunday afternoon and these boys have already started traveling to Poletta. Today we'll have a description of the area in Poletta and a curiosity question of why do these boys really do go every Sunday there? What purpose do they go? What do they have there? Do they have their house there or do they do something else, another kind of business on a Sunday afternoon? All that we'll have to find out in what's going to happen in today's class and the last part of this lesson. So we're going to wind up the lesson as well today. We'll read it out. We'll understand why do they need, so characters, I just write it down for you again, don't miss up. Nicola, Jacopo, the narrator, his companion, and Luigi the driver. Like the cartoon, Bob the Builder. So Luigi the driver. Now we have not been introduced to one character and her name is Lucia, their sister. And another character who is very interesting to us is the nurse. So we have not been introduced to the nurse and Lucia, who is the sister or sibling of Jacopo and Nicola. So these are the characters. You know these three, you know these two. The rest of the two we'll find out today. Alright, follow your copies on page 105. We'll begin. I'll begin from the first paragraph, even though we did it in the previous class, or I did explain. I'll just start so that we get a connection to what we are going to do today. Follow your copies on page 105. The following afternoon, we drew to a tiny picturesque village set high upon the hillside amidst sheltering chestnut groves with a few pines on the upper slopes and a deep blue lake beneath. So this is where we stopped. So on a Sunday afternoon, they have started traveling to Poleta. They are going into a very small village. A picturesque is something that is visually very attractive. Pictures or buildings or anything which is visually attractive is picturesque. So there were buildings like that. If you go to the old kind of villages where they have built certain houses. If you go to Goa, you will find it. You go to Goa, at a stretch, all the houses are beautifully designed. So you go to foreign countries in a certain place, England and other ways, you have beautiful buildings set up there. So certain towns and cities do have buildings like this, which are beautifully designed on the same street. Now in this village here, they also had buildings like that, which was very visually attractive. Now that was on a hillside. They had to go up the hill, sheltering chestnut groves. So all chestnut trees were there on the other side and few pine trees. Just imagine the scenery there. You're going or driving up the hill, and on the side, on both the sides of the road, you have these chestnut groves and a few pine trees. Okay. And then there is, when you go down, you can find a beautiful lake that is there beneath. See, in this lesson, I want you to keep in mind the prepositions that are there, because prepositions, articles are there for you in your grammar section, which we will deal later. But here, why I would like you to concentrate on the prepositions is because those are questions that come for 3 marks, where sentences will be picked up from the textbook. So if you have read the textbook thoroughly, if you know the lesson thoroughly, then answering there is easy than getting confused by words like these: beneath, beside, side by side, okay, all these words that are there. Okay, we should continue. I imagine that our destinations would be some humble dwelling. Now the narrator thinks that wherever they are going, it's very peaceful and a nice and a simple place that they are, humble dwelling, place to stay. But directed by Jacopo's shrill treble, we drew up at a large red roofed villa surrounded by a high stone wall. Okay. Now Jacopo has a shrill is something that's unpleasant. Okay. Treble is like shivering or something that's happening on a bigger note, but more bigger than what you are shivering. Alright, trebling, like trembles. We drew up at a large red roof villa. Now they have come to a villa which is red in color, red roofed, okay, red roofed villa which is surrounded by a high wall, a compound wall, high stone wall. I could scarcely believe my eyes, and before I could recover breath, my 2 passengers had leaped nimbly from the car. Okay. Now they have already reached where they have to reach on a Sunday afternoon, and this narrator, who was the driver himself that day, he could not believe his eyes. Why he could not believe what he saw was because even before he could just take a sigh or breathe again, recover his breath again, the 2 passengers he had, that is his 2 boys, they had already moved out. Okay. leaped nimbly from the car. Nimbly is some light action. Okay, so slowly they have just already moved out of the car without the narrators or the drivers notice. We shall not be long, sir. They said, we are going to take a long time, don't worry, we'll just come in a short time. Perhaps only an hour. He says, okay, 1 hour of time, we're going to come back, not a long time, you can wait for 1 hour. Maybe you would like to go to the cafe in the village for a drink. So these boys suggest, maybe you could go for a cafe and have a drink and come back, while away your time till we get back within 1 hour. They disappeared beyond the corner of the wall. So there was a corner of the wall. These boys, though they leaped nimbly and they went, they suggested the narrator to go to the cafe and have a drink, and then they disappeared behind the wall. When a few minutes had elapsed, that's passed away, okay, I followed. So after a few minutes had passed away, or after a few minutes after the boys left, the narrator followed them. He didn't go to the cafe for a drink, rather he followed them. I found a grill side entrance and determinedly rang the bell. So there was an entrance, not the main entrance but a side entrance that was there, and then with a reason to know what these boys were up to, he rang the bell of the villa there. A pleasant looking woman with a ruddy complexion and steel rimmed spectacles appeared. Okay, so a woman of moderate middle age, okay, with a ruddy complexion, that's reddish, healthy and glowing face. Okay, ruddy complexion, we say he has a dark complexion or he has a fair complexion. Okay, so your skin tone that is there. So she had reddish cheeks maybe, and healthy and glowing look on the face, and steel rimmed spectacles. The specs that she wore were of steel framed. I blinked as I saw that she was dressed in the white uniform of a trained nurse. So our narrator just blinked the eyes because he didn't believe, because rather he didn't know what these boys were up to in the first place. Second one, he didn't expect somebody, a woman who was dressed up like a nurse, a trained nurse, to come and open the door for him. Even though he was very curious to know who is there inside or what these boys are up to, because there were two little boys who were not whiling away anywhere but rather doing a lot of hard work all throughout the week. So the narrator, being curious, was also surprised with the presence of this woman at the door who opened the door for him. And what was she dressed in? She was dressed in a white uniform, just like a trained nurse is dressed. So we have our next character introduced, the nurse. The nurse, her name is not mentioned. I just brought 2 small boys here. He said, I've brought 2 small boys here because he didn't know now how to introduce himself, or he didn't know what he must say to the nurse there, because he was literally confused now what these boys are up to. Second one, he didn't expect a nurse to come and open the door for him. So without any hesitation, he said, I've brought 2 little boys here right now. Ah, yes. Her face lit up. She was first of all glowing, and then she said, yeah, yes. Her face glowed because she was also happy to maybe have those visitors, those boys or those visitors on the Sunday afternoon. Her face lit up. She opened the door to admit me. Nicola and Jacopo, I will take you up. So she got confirmed of who this man was, and then her face lit up, and then she welcomed her guest and she opened the door for him. Nicola and Jacopo is what she said, and then she said, come on, I'll take you up to wherever they have gone. She led me through a cool tiled vestibule into a hospital. Vestibule is the entrance of a large hall. So because it's a roofed and a red roofed villa, these may be red bricks, so it's very cool. That area where the narrator entered was very pleasant, and a tiled vestibule, okay, tiled entrance for the large hall into the hospital. So that was the entrance which had led them, when they went inside, that led them to a area where it was a hospital. For hospital, the villa had become, earlier it was a villa, now it was being turned into a hospital. We traversed a waxed and a polished corridor between well-equipped wards. So they were just moving around what? Well-built and well-maintained or well-divided wards that were there, well-equipped. Everything, all facilities were available, even though this hospital was being created in a villa. We went upstairs to a southern balcony which opened to a vista of gardens and the lake. So they went up to the balcony now, okay, in the southern balcony, and there was a beautiful garden that opened for them, okay, a large garden that opened for them, and they could see a beautiful lake on their side. On the threshold of a little cubicle, the nurse paused, put her finger to the lips, and with a smile bade me look through the glass partition, okay. So that little cubicle where they reached, okay, cubicles are, now if there is a room, you make parts out of it, isn't it? You make parts out of it and divide it. So one area, another area, cubicle, small areas that you divide and make. Now if you've gone to the hospital or if you've gone to any place in a big office, cabins, okay, different cabins. So each cubicle that is there. The nurse paused. She stopped there. She put her finger to her lips. She said, finger on your lips, okay, and with a smile bade me look through the glass partition. So she gave a smile and she looked through the glass partition that was there. So she told the narrator also, look there. The two boys were seated at the bedside of a girl of about 20 who, propped up on the pillows, wearing a pretty lace jacket, was listening to their chatter, her eyes soft and tender. So he looked through the glass partition where the nurse asked him to look, and what did he see? He saw a girl who was about 20 years old. She was sitting on the bed, and these boys were on the bedside, okay, just beside her bed. They were sitting and talking to this girl who was in her 20s. She had just taken her rest with the pillows on the bed, and she was wearing a pretty lace jacket, a lace netted woven jacket that was there. And she was listening to the chatter was what these boys were speaking. Her eyes were very soft, very tender, very beautiful to look, glowing eyes that were there. Despite the faint flush high upon her cheekbones and the queer inertness of her postures, one could discern at a glance her resemblance to her brothers. So this girl is Lucia now, the last character introduced to you, Lucia. So she was resting, keeping a pillow, and she was sitting halfway through the bed, in the bed there, resting with a pillow, and she had a faint flush, okay, that's like cheekbones were highlighting over here, and her queer is something strange, inertness, okay, her lack of ability to move. So her strange inability to move, what did it make? Inability to move or what? She could not change her postures or her positions there. But when you look at her from far away, or when you were observing them, the boys and the girls, what you could see is these boys and the girls, they looked alike in their face, or their facial structure, their resemblance, they were somewhat similar to each other. Now that the narrator figures it out, saying that these three are siblings. So your last character, Lucia, is introduced, who is in the hospital, and these boys on every Sunday afternoon go to meet whom? Their sister Lucia. Okay, one could discern at a glance her resemblance to her brothers. So she was somewhat similar to her brothers. Usually siblings are like that, isn't it? At least one or two features on the face resemble. Some look very alike even if they are even if they have too many years apart. Some don't look too alike, but at least one smile or your eyes or your nose structure, one or the other thing is similar to one of the siblings that you have. Okay, a vase of wild flowers stood on her table beside a dish of fruit and several books. So there was a vase of fresh flowers there that was kept on her table, and there was a dish there which had fruits, and on that side they had a lot of books that were there. Won't you go in? The nurse murmured. So the nurse is asking the narrator a question. Would you not like to go in, or are you not going in? Lucy, I will be pleased to see you. Now see, the nurse doesn't know the relationship of the narrator with the boys. The nurse has thought maybe some of the relative or some person who is known to them. But the narrator, he himself knows that he doesn't know them, but he's only curious to know what these boys are up to. So that's how it goes on. I shook my head and turned away. He said, no, I don't want to go, and he turned away. I felt I could not bear to intrude upon this happy family party. He said it would be wrong if I would, he's telling himself, it would be wrong that if he would have entered inside where there is a happy family together. A sister and two brothers, a happy family, they are chattering, okay, they are chatting about things, they are sharing certain things, they have the smile on their face, they are happy to see each other. So the narrator feels it would be wrong on my part to disturb them or to take away that happiness, grab that happiness from that happy small family party that is happening. But at the foot of the staircase, I drew up and begged her to tell me all she knew about these boys. So now they're coming down the stairs, and the narrator goes and begs the nurse, please tell me what these boys are up to, and to know a lot more about the boys, because the boys have done nothing wrong. The narrator just wants to know, why are these boys actually working like that on all on the weekdays, and then land up here on a weekend? She was eager to do so. The nurse agreed that I would tell you the story. They were, she explained, quite alone in the world except for this sister Lucia. Okay, so they have no one. They have only their sister Lucia. They don't have anyone, so they are very alone, lonely in this world except for three family members that are there. That is two brothers and one sister. Their father, a widower, a well-known singer at La Scala, had been killed in the early part of the war. So their father was a widower, that is, his wife had already died before him, and he was a well-known singer at La Scala, and he had been killed in the war. While he was taking part there, or he was a person who had made up his career there as a singer, was killed during the times of war. Shortly afterward, a bomb had destroyed their home and thrown the three children into the street. So war was going on at that time. I told you it's a background of the World War, and at that time a reference to this story has happened, where during the war a bomb had hit their house, and these three children were just put out and had to survive on their own after it destroyed their house. So these children had no other option than to make a living for themselves on the streets. They're always known a comfortable and cultured life. So they had a happy family, they were well settled, they were into a good, well-to-do family. That's how it said, isn't it? Sometimes it's rags to riches, or sometimes it is riches to rags. Okay, rags is nothing. You don't have anything. It's simply begging around. Rags to riches. You can have any position in life, either rags to riches or riches to rags, in case you don't want to appreciate what richness you have and share with others. So here they belonged to a very well-to-do family, a manner and a cultured life. They had everything that they could, comfortable life that they had. Lucia had herself been training as a singer, and they had suffered horribly from near starvation and exposure to cold Veronese winter. Okay, so it was winter time, and at that time when this war had hit them, Lucia was earlier, when they had a comfortable life, Lucia was training herself to be a singer, because that is inherited from the father. Father was also a singer, isn't it? So that talent for singing was being inherited by her father, and then she also went on to train herself to be a great singer. But once the bomb hit them, the father passed away and the mother was already not there. So these children were left all alone on their own. They had to die of starvation and exposure to the Veronese winter. Winter in Verona was very cold, and they were on the streets. So they have had a difficult time once their parents have passed away, or once this bomb destroyed their house. For months they had barely kept themselves alive in sort of shelter they built with their own hands amidst the rubble. Okay, rubble is waste, rough fragments where bricks and other things where you just gather it and then make a living out of your own. Okay. If you've seen huts, or if you've seen a bird's nest, they bring all these small sticks that are there, any waste material, then they make a nest out of this. The rubble is something like that. So few months had gone after this bomb that destroyed. Somehow they managed to keep themselves alive in a sort of shelter, in sort of a residence or a temporary house that they built for themselves with their own hands, using all these kind of waste materials that are there. Then the German elite guard established headquarters in Verona, and for 3 dreadful years ruled the city with ruthless severity. So the German guard had taken over now, and they had established their headquarters, the main office there, and for three years these German officials were ruling the city, and very difficult with them. They had no soft corner, but rather very harmful, and didn't have love, peace, kindness. The boys grew to hate those harsh, unwanted masters, and when the resistant movement began secretly to form, they were among the first to join. So these boys didn't like somebody being very harsh on them, somebody imposing certain things which they don't like. They wanted the freedom of their own. But when these Germans started ruling there, okay, in secret or in private, a group of people went on to form something called as a resistance group, resistance movement. That is, we are against your form of ruling. We don't like the way you rule. We would like our kind of freedom, or we would also like the way we would like to live in our own city. Okay. So this resistance movement began, and these boys were the first one to join them because they didn't like the way the ruling party was ruling them. It was not a matter of playing war. Okay, it was not a matter of something that they wanted a war back again, but they just wanted to share out their opinions of dislikes to the ruling government. Their extreme youth and insignificant size, added to an intimate knowledge of a neighboring hills, made them immensely valuable. Now these were very little boys. Okay, you can take 2-3 years back then their age. They were very little boys, and because they were tiny, also little in size, they were of a lot of help, and they were valuable in making certain things better. Okay. Now they were small, and they knew they had knowledge of all the neighboring hills that were there. So with this knowledge, they proved to be very valuable to this resistance movement that is there. Now, how were they valuable? We'll see. They were used to carry messages to a force of liberation, and more dangerous still, to ferret out information on the movements to the German troops. Okay, so these boys were used as like messengers to carry message from this end to the other end, to tell the other side that the Germans are doing these things to us. Okay, or whatever the German troops are planning to do. These boys were like carriers of message to people who could liberate them, people who could give them freedom. And very dangerous kind of a situation. If they would get caught, they would have been killed. Why would have they been killed? Because that was a dangerous situation of giving out information of the Germans to somebody else who they think that is going to liberate them back again. The good nurse broke off, her eyes moist, then with a deeper feeling she went on. So the nurse is already carried away with the emotions of these boys, and she's feeling very pity for them, or she's feeling very sad for the kind of situation they had to face and how they have come up. She's very proud of them also. So two kind of emotions as she's crying, or as she is tears, she has tears in her eyes, is of knowing the suffering of the boys as well as being proud for the boys. And she, with that same feeling, deeper feeling, she went on to narrate the story of the boys. I need not tell you how fine they were, these infants. They were very small, they were very fine, very good and nice, comfortable. How they went in the darkness through the mountain passes with letters in their shoes, which might cause them to be shot, and when it was all over and we had peace at last, they came back to their beloved sister. So they were, I told you, don't consider this age. This age was when the narrator met them. So they were little more, much more little boys than that time of the when the Germans started ruling them. Okay, so they used to go in the dark. They used to go in the night time, where all these mountain passes that are there towards the mountain there, doing what? They used to carry small letters inside their shoes. Okay, inside their shoes. In case those people on the borders found out, these boys would have been shot. So after they participated in this kind of a movement where they wanted liberation from the German troops or the Germans, after they got a lot of independence and freedom, these boys came back to their sister. Till then their sister was over there with the nurse. Okay. And we had peace at last. They came back to their beloved sister. So they went on to see their sister. And they found her suffering from tuberculosis of the spine, contracted during the miseries of the war. So this sister is in the hospital now because she is being affected by tuberculosis. Okay, TB. Tuberculosis of the spine. And how did she get it? Because of the after effects of the war is what she got, tuberculosis. She paused, took a quick breath. Now the nurse is feeling all those emotions. She took a quick breath, and the narrator is still curious to know what has happened again and how these have connected with each other. Did they give up? I don't have to answer that question. So the narrator has asked her the question that did these boys give up after she got tuberculosis? That now it was something that was like a situation that they were not comfortable in, because absolutely no earning, absolutely no comfortable life, nothing of that sort which they could afford a treatment for their sister. But the narrator is still curious, and they asked, did they really give up on their situation? So the nurse continues now. She says, I do not have to answer the question. See, there is no answer to that question. You can see right in front of your eyes. They brought her here, persuaded us to take her into the hospital. So those two little boys, see the braveness, see the boldness, the courage. Okay, all are synonyms, but I'm giving you different words. See how much of strength they have, even though the sister is elder to them. They are much more younger, isn't it? C20 and C12 and 13. Much more younger to the boys. Yet the boys were determined to save their sister and fought for the sister's life. So they came up to this hospital. They repeatedly requested the nurse to keep their sister over here in the hospital. In the 12 months she has been our patient, she had made good progress. She's made good progress. So 12 months already now that their sister is in the hospital in this red roofed villa, and she has made a good progress. She is recovering and she is doing well. There is every hope that one day she will walk and sing again. So the nurse says, in the coming near future, very soon she will stand upright, she will walk, she can dance, she can sing, she can be a normal, she can continue her normal day-to-day activities very soon. And she says, there is hope. There is hope. We can have faith in what she has to do in future because of the strength that these boys have. Of course, everything is so difficult now. Food so scarce and dear. We could not keep going unless we charged a fee. So the nurse says everything in Verona has been, or 30 kilometers ahead in Polita, has been very difficult. The entire area there has been affected by war or the miseries of war. We have been in a situation where there is scarcity of food, and whatever is little we get, we have to consider very dear to us or very close to us. So she says, in order to keep the hospital running, we had to charge some amount of money. We had to charge some fees to look after their sister. But every week, Lucia's brothers have made their payment. So now see with that proud feeling or with that pride, she says, every week, without fail, Lucia's brothers, these two boys, have made their payment. Absolutely no doubt that they didn't have money or anything. So now do you know why these boys worked or all kind of odd jobs that they do? They did basically to pay this at the weekend for their sister. She added simply, I don't know what they do, I do not ask. Work is scarce in Verona, but whatever it is, I know they do it well. So the nurse is again proud now. So with that prideness, she says, I don't know what work they do. I have not asked them, and I don't want to ask them what kind of odd jobs do they do, because getting a job or getting a work in Verona is very difficult. Work is very scarce. That is, people are already working and you can't easily find a job. Then she says, but whatever work they are doing, they are really putting in their heart and soul, and they do it well is what I know, the nurse says. Narrator says, yes, I agreed. The narrator properly knows what these boys are doing, but the nurse is unaware. Even though the nurse is unaware, she says, whatever they have done or whatever they are doing, they're really doing it well, because without fail, their payment has come on a weekend. And she also tries to say that even though work is scarce here, even though work is not available very easily, the boys have managed to do something. Yes, I agree, they couldn't do it better. The narrator, knowing the situation, says this now. Yes, nobody could do it better than those two boys. I waited outside until the boys rejoined me, then drove them back to the city. So now that the narrator has heard all the story from the nurse, he went back and sat in the car and he was waiting for the boys. The boys had promised, isn't it, 1 hour? So within 15-20 minutes, the narrator had finished off his talk and was waiting for them. They rejoined, they came back and joined the narrator, and then they went back to the city. They sat beside me, not speaking, in a mood of quiet contentment. Now they were very happy that their contentment is fulfilled, I'm satisfied. Okay, so they sat beside the narrator. They didn't speak a word, but they were feeling satisfied, quiet satisfaction or quiet fulfillment of whatever they saw, whatever they did. Now these boys are not aware that the narrator knows the entire story, or these boys are still not aware that the narrator has seen them inside. For my part, I did not say a word. I knew they would prefer to feel that they had safely kept their secret. Now the narrator says, even though I didn't ask them anything, I didn't tell them anything, let the boys believe that they have kept their secret just like that, because they didn't invite the narrator inside, isn't it? They said, will you go to the cafe and have a drink? We'll be back in 1 hour. So they had not let out their secret of why they are going inside. So the narrator also didn't question, and narrator thought, let the boys assume that they have kept their secret and I don't know anything. Yet this silent epic of youthful devotion has touched me deeply. He says so much of devotion. They are yet small, young teenagers. One is yet to enter, one has just entered. So young boys, and that girl was also very young. See the devotion that they have. She's happy to see them every weekend, but she has to wait for another 6 days to see them. Once she sees them, they meet for 1.5 hours maybe, and then they go back. The boys are really working hard on a daily basis just for the sister's payment and nothing else, so that they can survive, they can see the happiness on their sister's face, and she can be back again to normal. So the narrator says, whatever they are doing, whatever kind of devotion or determination that they have, or their willingness to work like that, willingness to be happy and not complain, or willingness to suffer and not complain, has touched or moved me deeply. He says, it's touched my heart. I am surprised, I am amazed, or I am fulfilled by, or I'm satisfied by whatever they are doing, and I'm really, really happy to have an inspiration like those boys. War with its attendant horrors had not broken their spirit. So even if it was such a big war, that had not broken down their spirit, their enthusiasm, their courage, their boldness, their strength, nothing of that sort. Nothing could shake these boys. Even though they had a very difficult life, they lost their parents, their sister had TB, nothing could shake them, or nothing could take or make or break them. In turn, they took all those broken pieces of life, though they're still struggling. The boys are still struggling, yes, but they've taken those broken pieces in life and made a beautiful living. They are not complaining. See, if you remember the past sentences that the boys have said, we are not complaining. He did say that. One of the boys did say that we are not complaining about the work, but we just told you something. So see, even though they have been suffering a lot, they have not been complaining at all, but they know their goal. They know what they are doing it for. That is why they put in their heart and soul. They wholeheartedly do something, that they do it for somebody they love, isn't it? Their own sister. So even though the war had given them a lot of fear, a lot of horror, a lot of disturbance that was there, nothing has shaken them. Nothing had shaken these boys, and these boys see the bond that is there between the siblings, very, very strong. The sister awaits them, the sister sends them happy. The brothers together work together and bring for whom? Back for their sister back again. And if any untimely maturity had been forced upon them, at least they had accepted it with dignity and courage. See, now, untimely maturity, they had to take on the responsibilities in life very early. It's not only these boys. Some of us maybe here and there may have had certain situations in life where untimely maturity, that is the age for you to play and mingle around, but something life hit you very hard at that time, and you had to take on a role, you had to be responsible in the house, and that has given you an untimely maturity. These boys also got they lost their parents, they didn't know what to do, they had to suffer, either they had to suffer or starve and die, but they chose not to do that. Even though this kind of a maturity was imposed on them, not at the correct time, they had to get it a little later in life. Being responsible, taking care of the family or taking care of their needs had to come a little later in life. But it came very early for them. It's not only for these boys. In our day-to-day scenarios also, certain people have that. Maybe they have lost their parents, maybe one parent, or maybe something else has happened. They had to go somewhere, they had to part away. Responsibilities come on their head, and equally responsible, they become equally responsible adults also. These boys took on the responsibility of catering to the needs of the three people. That is a family that they had. And those boys should be encouraged or should be appreciated for taking up that maturity or responsibility that came on their head at the wrong time, for doing it with a lot of courage and dignity. They respected what they did, anything, any odd job maybe. That didn't matter to them. They were equally focused on what they had to do, and they did it with a lot of courage that they can do it. They had that belief within that I can do this, we can do this. So maybe the sister was a little encouraging to them. That would boost their energy on a weekend, and then they would go on the weekday to come back on a weekend again to their sister. So that dignity, that level of respect they did keep for anything that they did. That is why they say you must love your profession. You must keep the dignity of your profession. You must have the courage also to face any challenge that comes in your profession. If you like what you do, then you will obviously face it. If you don't like, and if you're pushed into something else, then you will not maintain it. You will not have the courage also to face if anything comes your way. But if you really like your profession, if you really like what you have to do in life, then you will equally do it with 100% effort, need not ask anybody for any help. These boys, so you can take inspiration from these boys to have dignity, to have courage, to have determination, perseverance, everything. Any synonym I laid down for you, you can take inspiration from our two little boys. Their selfless action brought a new nobility to human life, gave promise of a greater hope for human society. See, the ending or the closing line is very beautiful. Their selfless action brought a new nobility to human life. Selfless action. They were not selfish for whatever they did. They're not selfish for their needs. In turn, taking up a challenge and working on it is a difficult task, isn't it? If you are thrown on a challenge of taking the responsibility at this age, you are 18 maybe now, or 16. If you are given a chance to take a responsibility of the entire family at this age, will you be able to do? Just question yourself. Will you be able to manage all things in the house, bring those groceries, manage the finances, manage everything in the house? Will it be possible? Now go back and think about these boys. How did they do it? So this is how you have to think and ask about yourself. How much of selfless action do we do? Just like these boys. So he says some kind of nobility has been brought. Some kind of faith has been brought. Some kind of noble values has been brought to human life. We have to respect the kind of work we do. We have to respect the way these boys had a lot of courage. Give promise of a greater hope for human society. So we really do take, or we can take hope from these boys. How? They didn't think that, oh, it's happened to me and I am of no use, I cannot do anything. No, these boys didn't think that. I told you they took all these pieces out, made their life beautiful. So the narrator tells us, from the story of these boys, what we can take is, everything has hope. You must hope for the better. You must have faith in the future. We don't know, forget about death. Let's keep death aside. That is, you cannot stop it. You cannot do anything to it. When it's your time, you have to leave. Keeping death aside, when you think about anything in the future, maybe you would like to think that I want to become this kind of a person. I want to do this in life, small or big. You must have some kind of a hope in that future. You must have within yourself first, and then you can expect the others to have on you. If you yourself don't have any faith and are affected by what other people say, saying that you are useless, you cannot do this, this is not meant for you. If you are affected by those words, that means you have no faith in yourself. If you have the faith and the courage and the determination to do something, then you can challenge anybody who's talking around you. Because you know how to do it, you know you will do it, and you can do it. That's kind of a message that you can take from these boys. Very interesting story, isn't it? How beautifully narrated, yes, but narration, the life of the boys was more beautiful than the way it was narrated. Things have been difficult for the boys, but the boys just challenged them and did it. Little did they know that their sister would get tuberculosis after the war. They didn't know. That again came upon them. But sometimes we are life throws you a lot of challenges. It's only up to you how you take it, isn't it? Some you can ignore, some you cannot ignore, you have to face them. These boys had to face the miseries of the war, their sister suffering and losing their parents, all kind of, so many difficulties at a certain time, at one time. Life hits you hard, very hard, one single time when all things come together. That's how when you stand up straight and say, I can do it and I will face it. Alright students, certain important parts that you have to remember over here are the kind of jobs that these boys did, the characters in the story, how the narrator got inspiration from the boys, okay, and a little description of their sister Lucia, what she had, how these boys helped her, and how these boys were helpful in the war. These kind of little important things, I think, if you remember in this lesson, is going to go well for you. And go and look at the glossary that's there and try to answer the comprehension also. Alright? Okay. We'll stop with this. We'll come up with another lesson in the next class. And till then, I would like you to read what is being done already. What's coming ahead, we'll do it as we are going to do the lessons, but what's already done, the poems or the prose, whatever it is, I would like you to read and keep it ready, so that you need not burden it on yourself at the last minute. So it's a challenge that you're away from college, and it's a challenge for us. We have to teach you like this, but whatever it is, we'll have to accept it the way it is. I want you to take it and make it easy for you now when you're at home. Read it. English is a very easy subject, isn't it? It's easy if you understand and read it once or twice and just register it in your brain. That's the story you'll have to remember. The certain details, maybe you'll have to overread them, read it again and again so that you can remember it. There's specific words that are there. Alright, certain lessons we've already finished. This lesson we finished. I want you to read and keep it ready before we begin something else. Thank you very much for listening, and I shall meet you in the next class.